Hi there, and welcome back to Bible Break. And we're carrying on with the story of Abraham again in Genesis chapter 20. We read the whole chapter. So that'll be Genesis 20, verse 1 to verse 18. Story of Abram and Abimelech. Reading from the NIV as usual. Here we go. Now, Abram moved on from there into the region of the Negev and lived between Kadesh and Shur. For a while he stayed in Gerar, and there Abram said of his wife Sarah, "She's my sister." Then Abimelech, king of Gerar, sent for Sarah and took her. But God came to Abimelech in a dream one night and said to him, "You are as good as dead because of the woman you've taken. She's a married woman." Now Abimelech had not gone near her. So he said, "Lord, will you destroy an innocent nation? Did he not say to me, 'She's my sister'? And didn't she also say, 'He's my brother'? I've done this with a clear conscience and clean hands." Then God said to him in the dream, "Yes, I know you did this with a clear conscience, and so I have kept you from sinning against me. That is why I did not let you touch her. Now return the man's wife, for he is a prophet, and he will pray for you, and you will live. But if you do not return her, you may be sure that you and all yours will die." Early the next morning, Abimelech summoned all his officials, and when he told them all that had happened, they were very much afraid. Then Abimelech called Abram in and said, "What have you done to us? How have I wronged you that you have brought such great guilt upon me and my kingdom? You have done things to me that should not be done." And Abimelech asked Abram, "What was your reason for doing this?" Abram replied, "I said to myself, 'There's surely no fear of God in this place, and they will kill me because of my wife. Besides, she really is my sister, the daughter of my father, though not of my mother, and she became my wife.' And when God had me wander from my father's household, I said to her, 'This is how you can show your love to me. Everywhere we go, say of me, he is my brother.' Then Abimelech brought sheep and cattle and male and female slaves and gave them to Abram, and he returned Sarah's wife to him. And Abimelech said, 'My land is before you. Live wherever you like.' To Sarah he said, 'I'm giving your brother 1,000 shekels of silver. This is to cover the offense against you before all who are with you. You are completely vindicated.' Then Abram prayed to God, and God healed Abimelech, his wife, and his slave girls so they could have children again. For the Lord had closed up every womb in Abimelech's household because of Abram's wife, Sarah. Now, we might have a feeling here once again of deja vu, in the sense that when we started the story of uh, Abram in chapter 12, Genesis 12, we hadn't got very far when, because of famine, Abram had to descend into Egypt with Sarah. And we see in Genesis chapter 12 a very similar story to what we read here in chapter 20. So much so that some people have claimed that it's this repetition, that this repetition itself is evidence of the fact that the Bible is sort of not divinely inspired, really. It's just been cobbled together by men, and that is why we have these repetitions. I fully admit that the Bible is put together by men. The Bible does not claim of itself to be something which has just fallen out of the sky. God inspired men to, for its content and for its editing and for its being put together. That is what I believe. That is what we as Christians believe. But we fully recognize that that this isn't just God, dropping something from the sky, but God working in this world and working in the people that He chooses to do His work. But as far as this business of I freely admit as well, of course, that this story is markedly or is very similar to that which we read in chapter 12. But there might well be a very good reason for this. And once again, what I would say is that before we get all excited, we need to go back to the Bible itself, and we need to look carefully at what we have read. Because sometimes the answer to our questioning and our problems or our ideas about the inspiration or non-inspiration of the Bible, depending on what ideas it is that we may or may not have, sometimes we can find keys and clues to help us in what we have read. So we should pay the greater attention to what we actually read before we start jumping to conclusions about what we have read. And in this story of Abram and Abimelech, Abram's reply to Abimelech itself gives us the key to why this repetition. Chapter 20, verse 11. Abram replied to Abimelech when Abimelech asked him, why did you let this happen? Why did you do this to me? Abram replied, I said to myself, there is surely no fear of God in this place, and they will kill me because of my wife. Similar to what happened with Pharaoh in chapter 12. Besides, she really is my sister, the daughter of my father, though not of my mother, and she became my wife. And when God had me wander from my father's household, I said to her, this is how you can show your love to me. Everywhere we go, say of me, he is my brother. So, on its own terms, this story, the Bible, has it that what happened in Egypt was never going to be just a one-off, because this was actually a sort of a ruse, if we could put it like that, again, which Abram had concocted with Sarah. Pretty dubious ruse, we might think, but at the same time, we're not really in a position, anachronistically, are we, to judge as to what security they had to take, or felt they had to take. But there, on his own terms, this was a ruse that they had prepared for everywhere. So, if not the same, a similar situation was likely to crop up everywhere where they tried this in order to keep themselves safe. Now, once again, whether this ruse was necessary or not necessary, whether you would want to say that they had not learned the lesson that they should have learned from chapter 12, whatever. The fact is that they are kind of sticking to their guns themselves, and that this is the way that they decided to play it, in case the people in the countries, the powerful people in the countries to which they're going, are naughty and wicked, this is probably the best thing that they can do to try to establish their own security, safety. Once again, though, as with Pharaoh, so with Abimelech, so at least certainly in these two instances, it appears that they did not have to be as cautious as they were, because judging by the reaction of Pharaoh and judging by the reaction of Abimelech, these powerful rulers were more scrupulous, had more scruples than Abram and Sarah feared that they might not have. So that when God himself intervenes in each instance to warn them in a dream here, probably was the same thing with Pharaoh, I can't remember, but in a dream here, certainly, what are you doing? She is somebody's wife. And so here we see, we haven't got to the Ten Commandments and what have you yet, but here we see how God defends the institution of marriage, really. That even though Abram and Sarah are playing fast and loose with it themselves for their own reasons, God intervenes because he is not happy with Abimelech even thinking of taking Abram's wife to be his own. And that is why, as he himself says, that's why I didn't allow you to lay your finger on her, to touch her, so that you don't sin against me. So we've got the reminder there again that God is in charge and in control of all things, and ultimately everything that we do is judged and is going to be judged in relation to him, ultimately. Never mind. Well, we should mind, but you understand what I'm saying? Never mind how it affects other people. Sin, by definition, is ultimately sinning against God. And it is God who will ultimately be our judge. And when I say that God is in charge and in control, isn't it interesting how, even though Abimelech acted in ignorance, taking Sarah, even though he himself didn't sleep with her, didn't touch her even, because he'd taken somebody else's wife, he'd taken Abram's wife, God then struck Abimelech's own wife and slaves with sterility, that they could not have children. In other words, God put a curse upon Abimelech and his family because he had interfered with Abram's family. So once again, we see here that God is the judge, and that God has the power to exercise his judgments in the world, which he will do so according to whether we are following his ways and whether we are following his laws and his commandments or not. So there we are. I'll leave you there for now, and it's the big moment next time, because we're going to be looking at, according to the subheading in my Bible, we're going to be looking at the birth of Isaac next time around. See you then.